Good morning, everyone. It is, I guess, checking Tuesday. It's Tuesday morning. Welcome to the Explicit Measures Podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. We had some internet issues this morning, so we're running a little bit late getting going, but, what are you going to do? I can only pay Time Warner so much money before they start, making the internet work or not work. We're kind of dependent here. So as Tommy's situating his camera off of his phone into the podcast here, we're getting started.
You think Xfinity would be a little more like, hey, we should really not make the internet not work for people when they're working from home, but
right?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you know what? Tommy's on.
That's awesome.
Johnny Winter says,
I feel your
Tommy
pain.
looks like he's on VHS. Need a couple
It does have that feel.
couple scanning bars that go across the screen. There's the screen here. We were teasing you, Tommy.
We couldn't have built anticipation any better, right? And maybe this fake internet, outage thing is a good thing because that was like the perfect, Tommy situating his video and getting it all set.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's how we enter in.
Yep.
Man, we're getting good at this thing.
We'll laugh about this at episode 120. So
There you go.
If we make it to 120.
I agree. Best comment of the day so far, average nerd dad, Mr. Carlo. The beard is looking great.
It's coming together.
It certainly is, my friend.
I haven't gone all. I still have some hair on top. Seth was encouraging me.
As we were talking, man.
Seth was encouraging me. It's like just get rid of it. You don't need it.
Smooth, man.
Yeah,
smooth.
I feel like it's gonna be so much colder in the winter. I have to wear a lot more hats.
Then you can wear all your. Then you get to wear all the Power BI hats.
That's
all the
true.
Time.
I have a lot
All
of
the
Power BI
time.
Right.
hats. Yeah. In many
you
colors.
need a beanie too.
The beanies.
The beanie would be good.
Yeah.
I still need to get that Pivx hat.
Pivx?
Love that hat.
I believe the beanie is right here. See, I have him literally around the corner.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah,
I got one around
It's
here.
it's always around somewhere.
I'm telling you, you start selling that hat to junior high kids, that's gonna start selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, they don't even know what Power BI is. They're not going to bat
I know.
Yeah, but
That's exactly why it would be cool.
That's the best thing in the world,
Like,
right?
you know,
what is that?
Good compliment though. My daughter was wearing one of my it's the Jack Daniels looking Power BI sweater thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever, Jack Daniels, it's Power BI. Who cares? Kids wear that to school. So the other kids are like, they're like, because
You can't wear alcohol shirts to school.
like it's not. You can't. So
It's not?
the kids are wearing it to school, and one of their neighbor friends are like, that's really cool. Where did I get that? And they're like, my dad's website.
Yeah.
Proud
He
dad
sells
moment.
alcohol. Yeah. Well, the worst would be like, oh, you throw at a party. It's like not the party you want to go
Nope.
to. So
Nope. We will bore you to no end. So awesome. Any good intros today? I just I'll jump in here for one thing I thinking of. I love Tabular Editor. It is such a cool program. I had a challenge I solved with it yesterday. I'll just kind of quickly dive into this one. I just thought it was so slick. I'm using it more and more. It's becoming my go-to tool for anything I build with Power BI at all anymore. It's open up a data model, and I mean I'm working in medium to larger size organizations, so it's we need to have a data model, and then we had thin reports. So that's pretty much my MO now is what I build. So open the model up. First thing I do, hit the external tool button for external tools. Boom, we're up there in Tabular Editor. And the challenge I had yesterday was we had created a data model with incremental refresh. So with incremental refresh, you're loading lots of more data. And so we have a huge amount of data being loaded historically, a year's worth of data. So if we reload all that information, if you change the PBX file and republish the file, all your partitions are deleted. It starts over and says, hey, I got a new model. I'm going to refresh. So, I mean, okay, great. But that's just how it works. I needed to change one table in Power Query, and this kind of bodes very well for our topic today. I had to change one table in Power Query. I just needed to change. It was a manually inputted table. You would just enter your own name numbers. It makes the little binary script thing, and it's a little text binary script, or I don't know what it does. It does binary to text or something like that. It translates it back from a table that you enter into an actual table that Power Query can read. So I went to the Power BI file, changed my steps I needed to change the data that I needed to change, went over to Tabular Editor, and I was looking around how to change the table schema. I'm like, where's this table schema? It says import. How do I didn't realize it was a single partitioned table. So it's a table of one partition, and you have to click the partition to see the M code. So once I clicked the partition, I could see all the M. I was like, oh, here it is. So I was able to change the M code, refresh the partition refreshed, and none of the other data model was touched. I did the whole process inside Tabular Editor. I thought that was pretty stinking cool. So anyways, I
No,
really liked it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tabular editors becoming something that was nice to have to must have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who haven't used it enough and are like, yeah, it's nice. Like the speed, the fact that you can do so many edits and you're not affecting the model, and also like keyboard shortcuts, so you can create 10 measures.
Yep.
Like, have it all there, test it out, and then save it. It's like it is. I'm the same with you. It's a must have at this point.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Winter's comment, it would have been more impressive if you edited the binary by hand on the fly.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna
001
ABD 122. Yeah, that's
it's line 437.
So you can modify, right, that connection type thing in SSMS too.
Yes.
What I would recommend is there are things that will absolutely break your model. So when it does work, or when you're testing it, like keep track of those, like the process of like, okay, this thing works, and I know I'm not going to absolutely nuke my model that's not incremental. Incremental refresh is going to take 2 hours to reload.
It will happen. And then you're gonna you take a model down for, and so that
you get a little cocky with the changes.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's no problem there. Just and then all of a sudden the entire model goes down, and you're like, what the heck happened? Yes, yeah, that's a scary moment when that goes down. I'll also make a note here, and I should put this in the chat window. When I was doing the incremental refresh, Phil C. Marks visualize your incremental refresh with monitoring traces on the analysis services. Pretty dang cool. Works pretty well. I don't know if you guys gone through that example.
No, I haven't.
We had an issue. Couldn't load the model. Couldn't get all the data in, and we're like, what's going on? Went to Phil C. Mark's DAX.tips. Phil C. Mark. It's called How to Visualize Your Incremental Refresh. Very, very cool. You go connect to this analysis services, you turn on a specific kind of trace, and then you watch all the events happen. And boy, it's way helpful to watch these refreshes with traces on. Man, you can see every little step. Oh, I'm going to process this table. Oh, I'm processing this partition. Oh, I just finished processing this partition. Oh, I'm going to do this. You can see exactly what the tabular machine is doing step by step and what it's doing. Man, it was very helpful to know, like, okay, we're about halfway through this refresh. Okay, no, we're not. We're refreshing this other table. Oh my gosh, this table has 9 million records in it. Holy cow, no wonder it's taking forever and we're crashing. So, like, you can kind of see useful. Like what's going on.
I have to go check that out.
Yeah, I'll see if I can go get a link to that blog.
Shoot a link into the chat windows there.
Pew pew. I don't know if I can do that, but I did it anyways.
Happy Tuesday. Got to throw that in there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Man, a little late.
Let's get into it. So we were talking. My example this morning was all about Power Query and how awesome it is inside Tabular Editor. Let's jump into it. Let's go and just open it up. Why is Power Query underrated? Let's go with Seth. Just jump in there with Seth right away.
Underrated.
Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, lots, man. I mean, why is it underrated? I would say underrated, right? Because if we're looking at the business user.
Yep.
Right. The vast majority of information workers are doing things manually. They've learned how to do things in Excel, and leveling up in there. Not being the Uber Excel guru like Mike, you were.
Oh boy.
Where you go into macros and VB and like you basically just start coding in the Excel files. Like most people aren't there, right? They create some pivot tables or calculations in columns and cells, and underrated because it's been an add-in in Excel for forever. And I can't tell, like, I would say 95% of the time we went and talked to people at clients, they had no idea.
No clue it was there.
Right.
And it's underrated because they could have automated entire swaths of their job, which is like this huge avenue getting into Power BI, and one of the big reasons why you would want to.
Yes.
When we talk to organizations, because it automates jobs, like not entirety, but it's like if you're doing something repetitively, virtuous waste, right?
Totally.
Over and over and over again,
well,
as an information worker, spending the hour or something, right, to just connect things together and then hitting a button.
Yeah.
Huge time saver. Huge time saver.
I would totally agree with that. So my world, I started with, when I started doing more data things, right? I started kind of with Access. So Access was nice because it had like a UI in front of it. You could bring some tables together, you could make some relationships, and then I could pick some columns down below, and it kind of behind the scenes would build SQL for me. So it'd say, I'm selecting these tables, it would do some joins for me, and you could just visualize what the data query was looking like. So that was kind of my introduction to like what SQL looked like. And I feel like the same way, Power Query is a tool, but underneath of it has got a really rich language. The M language is very robust. It does a lot of great transformations. And the UI on front of it is just genius. The fact that there's a UI on top of it is just super helpful because I can just jump in, click a couple buttons, it does what it needs to do, and it works. So I think really the only reason why I'm really in Power BI is probably mainly due to Power Query. I found that in Excel and thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. To your point, Seth, like I can streamline so many things and automate stuff and reduce, like it was also like a thing of like removing my errors, right? If I could have one large table of mushed up data from lots of little tiny files, and I was in engineering at the time when I kind of started discovering this stuff, I had, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, hundreds of little tiny files. I would do a test in the lab and the lab machine would pop out a CSV or a text file, and I had to go consume those. And I'd go run lots of tests, and then I'd have this pile of files. And I remember previously I would go into each file, I'd copy paste it out, I'd build a template Excel file and just have just keep pasting data in. But that was just riddled with errors. I had to do a lot of self-checking and cleaning, and oh man, it just took so long. And then Power Query comes around, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer.
Well, the fact that it's like it's a functional language, so it is a recipe, and that is something to get off the first time. Where if you remove a column, it's gone forever, basically, unless you go before that step.
Yep.
That concept for me was a little difficult the first time I went through it because it was like, wait, if I sorted it now, why is it breaking on this next step? It was like, because you removed it.
Mm-hmm.
But once you realize that you're doing this, you're just asking the table to do the same thing every time, and you're doing this in a sense, this methodology to it, and then it's one and done, and you can basically create those transformations. For someone coming from Excel who's trying to do that every time manually and saying, wait, all I have to do now is just click refresh and all those steps are done.
Yes.
Like that's huge.
That's really big.
That absolutely huge. So because we had the same, a little similar to you, Mike, where coming from the Excel world, and it was a lot of index match because I was not a VLOOKUP guy.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of those things that we had to do, we had to copy and paste the formulas. Then we were a bunch of CSVs and trying to connect to it. But then you were like, wait. Oh, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait, I could put all these CSVs in a folder, and then it could go to each one.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do anything. Like it's a set and forget. And yeah, and I think I came from the Power Query world before Power BI, and then you're like, oh, this is in this new tool. But that to me is such a powerful thing. And I think more so because, like you said, there's a user interface.
Yeah.
Where you don't realize there's this whole functional language happening behind the scenes.
Agreed.
And it's like, so is that clicky, draggy, droppy, so to speak?
Yeah. And I think I love the idea of giving you a whole UI to manipulate things, and then giving you the formula bar for the single step that you're on. Because I think it helps you learn, like as you turn on the formula bar, as you look at stuff, as you see it going on there, you're kind of just digesting what it's doing. Oh, when I do select columns, here's what it looks like. Here's the syntax of how that works. Oh, okay, interesting. I need to add a column. And so now I don't go back and click the gear anymore. I can go in and say, oh, okay, the column name is this. I'm just going to go add it and just copy the syntax that's already there and just use it. It works.
That's if you think about the user experience between Power Query and DAX, that's what's missing in DAX. Like you don't have like Power Query is very forgiving in testing out something.
That's true.
This is true.
I want to select something. I want to see what it does to my data, and it's like small subset. Boom, this is what it does to your data, and you're like, nope, that's not what I want.
Undo,
try
go back.
Else. And that experience doesn't live in the front end, right?
That's totally true.
You kind of like that's where calculated measures may have, right, or the intent of something, but there is no like, oh, unwind, try something this, do that, try this approach, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think the other point I'd make in here that while after I stopped talking and you started, Power Query to me is the saving money part of our phrase of saving money or making money.
Yeah,
right, because the time invested in there in automation saves time exponentially and you're going to save so much more money from a worker perspective, especially if it's widely adopted and people are automating parts of their tasks. They can focus on different aspects of the business and solve problems, as opposed to, doing the monkey activities of just like copy paste, put my Excel file here, copy this out, add this calculated column, like generate these 500 steps to get to my report.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is
great. I got a new T-shirt for you now. Power Query, save money. DAX, make money. But that's a really good point.
Right? Yeah, I think it's very. I think that's very true. I have an interesting comment from Johnny Winter. Johnny Winter. He says, asked the question from YouTube: is this an educational kind of thing? I do that DAX experimentation in DAX Studio, and I would say, Johnny, I think you're spot on. But DAX Studio is kind of giving you a bit more of a UI around how to build DAX, because in DAX Studio, you have your list of columns and other measures, and you can drag them onto a canvas, essentially. It's not quite as simplified as what you see in like a Power Query, but it does give you like that experience of like, I can test something out. And I think for me, the biggest hurdle was when I'm in Power BI Desktop, I don't have a way of looking at a table easily. I can't write a simple statement and then see what table was returned from my summarized statement, or what is it doing. Everything has to be returned as a measure. Now, you can create calculated tables, but the UI to do that is a lot more complicated to be able to write a measure versus a table. You kind of have to decide if you're going to make a measure or a table first and then do the calculation. So yes, you could make a table, but in my opinion, I think that ability, that obfuscated data layer.
Leveling up here, yeah.
Ooh, let's try out new words for the first time on a podcast. Let's do that. But do that layer, because you can't see it, it makes it a bit harder, and you just kind of have to know how it works. And I think these other tools like DAX Studio and Tabular Editor 3, where you're able to kind of like pick apart some more of these measures and calculations, are helpful for you.
You know what they should build in the tool?
What should they build?
The same thing we have to manually do every single time. Like, how do you vet your measure? You take a small subset of data and you put it in a table.
Yep.
Right. It's the same thing that Tabular Editor is allowing you to do.
That's
right? Except they should build that into the tool. Like, do you want to test this? Yes, I do. What are the things you want to test? Like, drop them into a table, and it's going to give you the first 10 rows, or just a small subset. So whatever changes you're making, right, just have a UI element that helps you, get through the understanding of what the DAX should be, and then like apply and roll on with your day.
Even if I could hover, even if I could hover certain things, right? I mean, seriously, could I have a DAX statement that was sitting there, and then I could hover the variables and see what it's trying to do, or like, that's a really good point, because there's really no way you can't get through it.
Right, but think of who the vast majority of like users were trying to cater to, or like bring into the fold of Power BI. Why is that statement of Power Query is a great experience? Because it's steps, it's functions I can test, and how does somebody operate? Oh, bye, Tommy. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, sorry.
So
you froze, so I wasn't sure what was going on.
There's steps. That, and you're visually looking at the changes. Like, this is how Excel people work.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they brainiac know everything they want to do with their data. They're testing their column out. They're testing their function. Does that tie out? Does it look right? Power Query carries that over. And then you lose that in the front end, where it's probably the most difficult to understand.
Yes.
Right. And Power Queries,
I totally agree.
Power Queries for the tinkerer. Like, and that's why I fell in love with it, because you can test so many things to get things exactly the way you want it, and how it's going, what the output's going to be. Again, compared to DAX, where it may work in one instance but not the other, and it's not necessarily broken. It's just not what you want. So what I love about what I've really fell in love with Power Query is you can do so many little experiments and steps that you can also quickly remove, just to get it right. Like if you were to do a merge and you want to make sure that you still have the same number of rows, you add an index, and then you do the merge and say if there's duplicates. But you can get things just the way you want to. And with the best part about Power Query, it will actually say show your error and actually bring you to that step.
Yeah, there's a lot of good automation there for sure.
Yeah. So but again, like, so the role of Power Query, and I think why it's not just about the UI, it's great. And it's not just about the ability to kind of debug, which is great, but I think it's the role it plays in Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, where I don't want to say where it's underrated, but I think that's where we know the value of it, because the UI, the tinkering, the debugging, that's all great.
Columns from examples.
Yeah,
totally dig that feature.
Right.
I mean, that's one that's just like freaking blows my mind every time I use it. Even simple things, I'll just start typing column by example elements. If you haven't played with that one, go find column by example, because that one's just super interesting. And then it just makes M code for you, complicated M code. It's not easy stuff.
I've only seen the use cases for me with strings. Like if I'm trying to extract certain things from
most of it's string related.
Not a lot of
I don't do anything more complicated than that, but there are some complicated parsing things that I've done in the past. It just works.
So outside of automation, right? Like if we're in general, we're talking about Power Query, right? And its role. Like what were your guys' learning curve?
Yeah, I like that.
Aha moments within, when you started using it.
So I definitely came at it from an Excel standpoint. So my aha moment, and this was probably a combined moment where I thought this thing's way more powerful than I thought. Real quick business scenario setup, right? We've got a lot of data coming from a customer. We're getting basically 200,000 records of data from them every week. So every week I'm getting 200,000. So we're growing fairly quickly with data. We needed to enter this data into our business object universe. So we gave it to IT. Here's the files. Let's go. Hand them the files. Okay, it's going to be 3 months. 3 months? 3 months just to load these files into a universe, a database? Okay. So we let them go off to their thing. Meanwhile, we set off and said, let's figure out how to build this thing. And I knew a little bit about Power Query at the time. So I stick all these things in a folder. I start doing the process. We start eating down the files. No big deal. All right, let's go. In a day or two, I've got the files that were given the last, couple weeks or so, maybe like 800,000 records of data in Excel. And we're building tables and things off of them. We're doing analysis with the data that we have in a couple days. Great. We're up and running. IT is still working through it. Okay. Fast forward 3 months from now, IT is about to be done with their universe, and the file format changes. And not kidding you. The company said we're going to change we're changing our internal system. The data's all changing. Here you go. Here's a new file. It has most of the same stuff, but a couple things are different, and some things are renamed incorrectly or what you had before previously. So we did, okay, fine, Mr. Customer, thank you. We're going to figure it out. So another half a day of work from my side. I make a brand new process, basically mirror the same process, tweak it, merge the two tables back together. Now I have a new table version, final version. We start running on that.
Coming in already.
Yeah. IT comes back and says, yeah, it's gonna be another 3 weeks, 3 months. So okay, fine. Let IT go do its thing. Because they have to take all the old data out, do something with it, and then figure out a new process to merge it all back together. I don't know what they do. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was so hard. I mean, maybe I just need to be involved in that space. But I was super frustrated. But we were like, fine, we'll just keep moving. Okay. Fast forward, I leave the team. I come back a year and a half later. I talk to the individual running the thing. We're still using Excel. We've got over like 18 million rows of data coming through Excel through Power Query. And it's slow as molasses because we're doing everything on like a smaller machine, but it still works. We're still going. And the IT group still hasn't quite figured all of it out right, and the numbers aren't matching or something. I don't know what they're doing. They're doing quality checks or something on there. Eventually they get off of the tool, but I look at myself going like, this is why I like this tool. I was able to do something quickly, make decisions, save money essentially, as opposed to having now not a good long-term solution. But man, to me, that solidified in my mind. Like, this stuff is powerful. I can do a lot with this.
Mine is actually very similar to yours, where we were tasked with a master customer table, and it was basically like 4 products to see their starting date, what kind of type they were for each, and their expiration date for each of these products. And it was initially it would come from 2 stored procedures, 3 tables, and there would have to be all this transformations that IT gave us, saying, here, in order to get the table, this is what you have to do. And so we had to do that in each Power BI or in each reporting file that we had. And I was like, this is insane kind of thing. Like, you had to share like 5 different queries. So we're like, there's got to be a better way. And it's like, well, Power Query exists in Excel. So what if we actually had this as a reference file? And so we did the same thing. So we started working, we started tinkering,
Yep.
and we're like, we can actually recreate this and create a master table ourselves.
Yep.
And so, and it was the same thing where it was months away. They're like, oh yeah, we'll have this as a SQL table, in a month or two. You're like, okay, well, we can't wait that long because we have all these requests to see how many members do we have.
Yep.
And
the request is now. I have to know the
right.
answer now. The data is in my hands. I have the extract files. They're right here.
Right.
I want the answer. Like, this should not take so long to get an answer for this.
And especially, this was not necessarily one-off to the report. This is the business case of how many members does the business have? And again, it was like, one, how does this not exist already? But then the fact that we created this Excel file that, like, to your point, it was a slow, massive kind of thing where it's like, only open it, make sure no browser's open, make sure Outlook's not open, and then open the Excel file. And or else it will freeze on you. But the fact that we could still have this coming from all these sources, and then we verified it was right. And then the better part was all of our reports were using it. And when data flows came around, we because still SQL didn't have a table for this master customer table, that we kind of transformed this into a data flow. Not that that's the first time I realized, oh wow, this is a Power Query, but you're like, oh my goodness, like there's a larger scale for this than just like my single report.
Totally.
And the fact that it can do these transformations and it can be shared across different users.
Yeah, that's huge. Data flows is a good idea.
3 months blows my mind. That's just inept.
I don't know.
What kind of system you're on. The fact that you're in an organization where it's like, listen, our interim solution is going to take a week. It's not going to be where we want to be, right? It's going to be a manual load or whatever the case may be. Send us the files, and then we're going to build the long-term solution. And because we're automating through our enterprise pipes and stuff, it takes a long time. As a old school SQL DBA / report guy, man, I was slinging SQL code all over the place. Right?
Well, think of
ingesting files, adding to tables. Dude, there's no excuse for that.
Let me give you some context though, right? We're we're a business unit, sales, the sales team, right? We're a smaller subset of sales. We're the analytics team, like a category management team of a smaller. So we're a group of a group kind of thing. So there's like a small group of. We're talking about a big company, right? This big company has large goals. They're implementing massive things. And so like what happens is the reason it took so long is because there's already work booked. There wasn't enough people in there. So it might have not have been a hard
resource constraints,
huge resource.
You're not important enough for us to get to.
And no, but it wasn't the request comes in and it's not like, hey, I'm ready to go right now. I've got people waiting on the bench just to start doing data things for you. Like that wasn't the case. They've already got plans in place. They're already checking other things or implementing.
I get it.
I know. It's just like, do it yourself.
Well, the other that exact situation too. It's not necessarily the absence of data, but it's more just to share another scenario where that value is. It's not necessarily the absence of data where it's like we don't have this data set that we need. It's the lack of accuracy. Like we had the same thing. We had to do the quota. Like everyone's basically quota and where their rep was, and we basically like transformed. Like this giant Excel file that had to be a manual process per rep, per month, per quarter, per region. And it was like the way that it was initially updated before was like VLOOKUP and other Excel sheets is like, this cannot be accurate. Like there's no way over the long term that this is going to work, especially when it's dealing with sales commissions.
Well,
so there's got to
the moment you start hopping between files.
Oh my goodness,
when there are network drives stuck in an Excel file because we have master data sitting somewhere and we're trying to, oh my gosh, like that is the worst management. And managing that is the worst.
And when you see NA in cell 8 AE 847,
and it's in a different workbook, and you're like, what the heck happened?
Good luck trying to figure that one out. So, but we transformed into the Power Query. So, but so I'll let Seth go. But just those two ways are the huge part of Power Query.
Yeah, coming from the SQL world, I did a lot of data manipulation, ETL, and all that in back end code, right? So I wasn't like the automation of things happened for me.
Yeah.
What blew my mind with Power BI and Power Query was a couple things. The first being it is so easy to ingest the same file schema from a folder, right? Like just connect to this folder, and forever it'll just work. Like keep throwing your keep throwing your file format into there, right? Like keep new files, the whole 9 yard, and there's no coding, right? It's just plug into this thing, hook it up, and now it works.
Right.
And then the other part is conversely around connections and just being able to access data where it is from whomever and pull it into a report is crazy cool.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
I don't know. We haven't talked about that.
You're taking off all of the work, the technical work to create connections and paths and like, how do I get at this data? Because I can't move it. And Power Query is just a beast, man, when it comes to like, no problem. Connections on connections kind of thing, right?
Right out of the box, over 100 connections.
Yeah. And that's a huge, and for free out of the box, hundreds of connections. I mean, and so when I look at other competing products, right, they give you hundreds of connections, but you got to pay for them. There's a paywall. They've picked some of the most popular ones, but some of the ones that you don't.
Yeah, we figured out how to do this. Now you pay us.
Now you pay us for that.
Right. Hey, I get it.
But it makes sense. I mean, but again, do I choose a tool that I got to go pay for more features, or do I just go get a tool that I can get off the shelf and just go do it? And I think right now it's there's not enough value for me to go buy other tools that can go do the same thing here. And most tools don't even have Power Query attached to them, right?
Yeah, so you're right.
Other visualization tools so to Seth's point. So this is actually interesting too, because Seth and I came from a very, very different approach. I came from the business. I was very much more of like a Power Query person, but Seth came from the SQL world. And I find typically Power BI developers that come from SQL don't use or don't do a lot of Power Query. They can use it as much as they need to, but why? I have the full power of SQL that's actually of an enterprise grade system. I'll just use that instead. And so I feel, if you're, as a person who's talked to a lot of people who have hired people, if your current workloads have a lot of Power Query in them, SQL developers will be able to learn it and use it. But I think you're going to find straight business users will have more experience with it, writing custom functions, doing more of the advanced features, understanding like tuning and optimization, and like how, like one question we ask in every interview is, what happens when your M query is slowed? How do you debug it? Most people don't know there's a Power Query performance analyzer that is available to you that you can actually watch what it's doing, and you can change what steps you're doing, and things like adding table.buffer somewhere in your process to load the data and keep it in memory while it's loading information. You don't learn those things because you can lean on SQL for that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still right tool for the right job.
I would totally agree with you. I'm not saying anything about that.
In the same way that a business user may not like get into SQL, like a SQL person should not just ignore Power Query, because there are some fantastic things you can do in there that you would struggle to do in SQL.
Yeah.
And it's just not worth the thrash. Like, so yes, it can be very straightforward if all your data is in SQL and you're the SQL guy and you're building the reports.
Yeah.
But don't discount Power Query or the fact that Power Query is the connection between that and your model, and there could be performance things within there.
Yeah,
I think from a learning aha moment kind of thing to learning curve, I would say when I moved past just applying a bunch of random steps, the first best article I read was Gil Raviv's like 10 pitfalls of Power Query.
Yeah.
And I loved it because it was Pitfall, like the old school game. Which aligned with my old school rear. But like in there, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like the first learnings of the program and some of the things that you want to avoid that would kill your performance was amazing. And just elevating from there into understanding what was going on in the advanced editor box and the actual M code was game changing from oh, cool, this is Power Query, I can do all this cool stuff, which is amazing, and it's getting me a lot of automation, to, oh man, I need to make this adjustment. I'm just going to go to the code and like modify a few things, update my connection string, or say, hey, I have this M code that's already doing this, copy and paste it into a new blank query, right? Like all those things are available to you to reuse and redo or modify, adjust, etc.
Yeah.
And when you just get into that next level of understanding the advanced editor, that's where your Power Query game like takes off.
Well,
So I want to do
Seth, I think
do a quick correction there. So Gil has an article around 10 mistakes you always do in Power Query, which I think is the one you were referring to. But P3 Power Pivot Pro Adaptive is the company that has the 10 pitfalls with the little game icon for the pitfall game. So I believe it's P3 that has the article. I put both of them in the chat window.
Formerly Power Pivot Pro. So.
Yeah, they've changed their P3 Adaptive is their new company, but they were previously Power Pivot Pro.
Well, Seth, I think you actually raised the point of kind of why people can stay away from Power Query with those pitfalls or the mistakes that you make, because if you don't know what you're doing in Power Query, or like all of us, when you just start off, you're like, wow, this is so cool. Look at all the steps. Wow, there's a UI. I can do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You all of a sudden get in this really, unhealthy relationship with Power Query where it's very hard to, in a sense, backtrack, because now you have a lot of dependencies. And what happens, just like the Excel files that Mike and I had that would slow everything down, but that was the only thing that worked. We've all run into this problem where you've gone too deep in a Power BI report or in a data set that where everything's too slow to the point where you almost have to blow it up and try again. And I think that's where people stay away. And I think that's maybe part of what the recommendation is too. And we say this too, like, where should you start doing your transformations? Yep. We say the source if possible. And there's a reason for that.
As far up to the source as you can. Yeah.
Right. And the reason we say that is not because Power Query can't do it, because Power Query really could replicate it, but you can really slow down your data set if you're trying to do all these group bys and merges. Can it do it? Yes. But should you always do it in Power Query? Well, no. And I think that's part of that underrated feature of it, where people are like, this is great, but also if I refresh my report, I have to go walk around the lake a few times and then I could come back to it. So that's, I think, we're part of like we say, the power of it is, yeah.
So I want to bring up a kind of an interesting point that I think Johnny was talking about here on YouTube. He was talking about, his world was SQL. He came from SQL world. And if you have an enterprise DW, if you have a DW or a data mart that you have access to, I think you have the opportunity to write more of those back-end things, to your point, Tommy, right? You're trying to push those data transformations upstream to something else. Makes sense. However, if you're a business user and you don't have access to those things, this is where I think a lot of the Power Query strength comes from, is because we're addressing a large audience with it. Yes, it can do just the simple loads from a SQL view, but in the cases where I don't have access to direct SQL to write my own stuff, or I'm just not as comfortable writing SQL, I think in a pinch it gives you it gives you a good starting point. And I think Seth and I have done this a lot when we talk about this with clients. Would be the Power Query language is like your faster method. It gets the business user in there and they're engaging with the data sooner. They can define what needs to happen to the data, and then you have an example. Like, now we know the data comes in like this. The output is this. This is what I want. And then you can go basically, and this is what I like about Power Query here, is I can take that query, rebuild my data table upstream somewhere in SQL, and hand it to someone else who's more versed in that area, and say, go make the table look just like this. Here's the table I'm hitting. I'm hitting these tables, shape it so that it's like this. I now have the definition of what it looks like, and now then once it's simplified, I can make a new query, and this is where it gets kind of cool in desktop. I can make a brand new Power Query, turn off the old one, turn on the new one, and now I've just swapped out the entire data structure just with M. And so I can, turn the old table off, keeping the names the same. It won't break my data model.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is in that evolution, right, that we've talked about multiple times, how do you promote a report throughout an organization? Like M is starting to proliferate into other areas like Azure Data Factory and Power Apps and things like that, right? Like, give me that graduation story, right? Like, even if, like, if I'm on the BI team or in the tech space and you've built a report that is using Power Query, I should be able to port that into ADF and it should just work. And then I should be able to refine from there.
Yeah.
Right? Like the tech stacks there, they need to be a little bit more tighter coupled, I think.
I like that idea a lot, and I think there's this concept of query folding happening inside Power Query, right? So Power Query can kind of technically write SQL statements, essentially, right? The Power Query can fold things up for you. It would be nice to get like a one button press upgrade or push into, or if you have something that's doing something optimized there, just let the machine just kind of auto generate you some SQL statement that is efficient, and it just knows how to interpret those Power Query steps and just generate the SQL for you. And now you have it in IT space where you can just say, all right, IT, take over.
Do you think the reason? Yeah, you actually raised something interesting where it's like it's not necessarily Power Query isn't really universal in the Microsoft space, where it existed in Excel, it's in Power BI, and it's known, but not necessarily in the scale that DAX is or data visualization. So when you thought about the stack of Power BI tools, and it's like it's something I've thought about this as we were talking. If Power Query was not developed by Microsoft, let's say the three of us developed Power Query,
it would be a lot worse.
Connections. No, yeah. Well, but the odds are probably we wouldn't be doing a podcast. So if we were to sell Power Query, right? Like, because of how powerful a tool it is, but it's not available in Azure, right? In anywhere. Or you can't necessarily deploy it.
Use it in ADF.
I mean, Azure Data Factory has it, and now you have Power Query Online.
Right.
So
I would disagree to some extent. If Microsoft wasn't getting behind and adopting Power Query, then you wouldn't see it in these other tools.
I would agree with you.
Okay.
I would agree with you. So, I mean, I think it started with Excel as kind of like an experimental thing to help Excel users get data in quicker. I think that's where it kind of started from. And it was kind of this whole analysis services, Power Query thing. And then from there, it kind of kept growing legs. It's now in Power BI. It's now in, I think you can actually do it in Dataverse. I think Dataverse has the ability of writing some M in there.
You can do it. You can create data flows.
So data flows are there. You now have it
in Automate.
Now it's in Power Automate, and now it's also in Azure Data Factory. So they've brought it across many different areas. I think it's seen enough of a integration across the tools that it's here to stay, and it's going to get better and more performant as they figure out how to like unify the code base. Because I know there's kind of different ways that code is implemented across the different tools. Like the Azure Data Factory version of Power Query is different than the Power Query Online, which is different than the one that's in desktop. So there's a little bit of slightly different flavors, and I think the team is really working hard to like unify all the features so they are as close together as the same thing for all of them. And then I don't know where this Power FX thing's going to fit in here in the world of M. Maybe that fits in there and has a place in here as well. I don't know, but like I feel like this is something that Microsoft is like they bought into. People like it. People are using it, and it's like this is a bad analogy, maybe, but it's like a replacement for SSIS to some degree.
It should be. So would you at least agree, or would you argue that for a Power BI professional that's working in desktop, the Power Query skill is the most obscure? Like if you thought data visualization, modeling, DAX, Power Query, if those are your four things for someone who's just developing, would Power Query, like the advanced side of it, be the one that someone has the least amount of knowledge in?
I'm going to say,
because everyone can do a group by.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to say it's going to depend on where either your background's from or what you have access to. I think there's two dependencies that say that, right? If you don't have access to a data mart and SQL, for sure, this is an underrated tool, and you're probably going to learn it, or you're learning it right now and finding lots of value from it. If you have access to those other deeper integration tools, then I would classify it as more of one of those obscure tools, because right now I almost never use it. I basically load a table, maybe rename some columns, do some data type changes, and then add incremental refresh. Like that's literally my like all my tables have that in it right now. I'm not really building much beyond that.
2 or 3 steps.
It's like 3 steps. That's it. It's done. And so because I have access, I understand the tools that are behind that are upstream. So in my world right now, it's an obscure skill set. I'm not really writing custom functions anymore. I'm doing that somewhere else.
Right.
But so if you don't have access to those tools, then I would say it's probably more of a core tool, and it might be even more important than what you're doing in DAX potentially.
So, and is that because the query exists
because you can't get the data elsewise?
Report?
Yeah, if you have no data, you have no DAX. Period. Like it's a starting point for whatever you're going to be doing. So I think if you don't have access to those back end tools, I think it becomes a very essential part of whatever your workflow is going to be. So this is where this is why we ask these questions in like interviews. Is like, where did you come from? What's your background? Oh, you're very SQL. Okay, so then you're probably not going to be very great in Power Query. Let's look at my organization. Do we do a lot of Power Query? Do I have a lot of business users making their own stuff, doing a lot of self-service things? If we need help in that space, I'm probably not going to hire a really really strong SQL developer. I'm going to look for someone else who's got more of a business bent to them.
I think the big question or the big difference is, are you doing your transformation in Power Query or before that? And Mike, to your point, if it's before that, then you're basically just connecting to that data source, and that's about it.
Yep.
Right.
Versus somebody who doesn't have that option and is connecting, merging, transforming, modifying, cleaning data in an automated fashion in Power Query, and you're going to take a bigger hit, on initial loads and things like that.
Correct.
But ultimately, that's what you would want to rip out of the file, as you enterprise things. So you're just connecting to a source.
Right. And
you're going right where I was going. I was like, there's a governance piece to this. And because we've talked about governance so far, and basically every episode. So let's say the word governance a couple more times so we can make sure it's covered in the podcast.
Connected.
But to your point though, like there should be some rules as you promote data sets or things into certified data sets. Let's call them certified or governed data sets. And one of those rules may be no manual tables. You don't have to go to the data model to add a manual table. That might be a rule. Or your rule might be no sources from Excel. You have to have it in someplace else in order to get it certified. So I think your organization has to decide what those rules are to make the data models work and what level of effort you're willing to put up in front of that. But yeah, I totally agree with that. It's definitely
and that's my argument too, is unlike DAX where you always have to say like total sales year to date, with Power Query, if you have a very intensive query where it's dependent on 3 tables, that may exist just in that Power BI report. So it's very hard to scale that out. Like you can create a data flow, but you have to go through that process. If you're creating it just in that Power BI file, unless that's a gold data set and you're doing live data sets, it's very siloed compared to other reports that you're creating, which is very different from DAX.
Yes.
So, and I think that's the problem where you can do all these great things, but we're getting more and more to a point with our Power BI reports where they don't exist in a vacuum, and especially with the queries as well.
I would agree with that. And that's, I think that's a maturity portion, right? You're now seeing like
exactly
if this stuff all lived in a single person or small team,
that it doesn't matter.
That's not mature. Like you're not to a point where you're trying to build models that are going to service multiple departments worth of information. At that point in time, we're squarely out of the I should be thinking much more robustly about this. We're putting more emphasis around what our data is doing. We need better process around that.
Yeah, we're long gone from just open this report file, copy and paste these 3 queries, and then
send
you're
me the
good
Excel
to go.
file, and we'll review it at the quarterly meeting.
And that's what we used to do. It was like, hey, we had a blank Power BI file that had all these queries. And it's like just copy and paste this, and then you're good to go.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, but that was back before data flows. Before I think that like you said, that story.
Yeah.
But that way doesn't work anymore, or shouldn't.
I think you asked in here like also like Power Query versus
bring
DAX,
back memories.
Right?
Yeah.
So why is it underrated? Because I think Power Query is glossed over a lot in conversations, and I think one of the most important things from my perspective when I teach Power BI to people is understand the different components and capabilities of each of those things within Power BI, because they are very separate and very distinct. And I think the reason I reinforce or make sure people understand Power Query is its own thing, where you are connecting to anything you want to, provided there's a connection, as well as transforming data and loading it, versus someone only doing Power Query and then starting to build all their calculations and things in Power Query and not using DAX, right?
Yes.
Because there's a purpose for each of those things. And I think in general, what I've come into encounter with the business user that you're teaching is they aren't aware of the different parts of Power BI.
Yep.
And if you're not aware, then you don't know how to use it well.
Correct.
And that's where I think Power Query is amazing, and you should know it's there, and you, even if you're just passing through it, right, because it's a component of how you're connecting to the data, and the more you do within it, the more you're going to need to understand the functional language. Like advanced editor is probably something I would just throw out there right away, because you can modify those connection strings and things just work automatically.
Yeah. Parameters is another big one that I use a lot more now.
Functions, custom
but it
functions.
Is that, like, the nice thing I like about the visual interface is that transform data is a separate window. It's very easy to see that you're in a different space.
Yes.
And just reinforcing that with people, I think, is key in understanding that there are different spots that you're doing things within each of these areas. So they're all important.
Yeah.
Especially understanding that they're all there, as opposed to tell me about Power BI. Oh, I connect to data, and then I throw DAX on top of it. Like, I guess.
Well, the most powerful features of Power Query, or the things that I think I've seen the most significance, is not available in the UI. Like to create your own custom function, and you never know unless you read about it.
I mean, there's a little bit more UI around custom functions. You can right click now and say make custom function from stuff now, but you have to right click. I mean, it's not exposed as a button on the UI somewhere. But again, I mean, if you read what Gil says about this, right? Writing custom functions, I mean, 90% of your work should be able to be done with not writing a single custom function. Like you're solving the last 10% of problems that you need to get to by writing custom functions.
100%.
But everything else, like 90% of it, is like out the box, ready to go.
Yeah.
Clicking buttons on stuff, clicky button transforms. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Clicky, add a step.
Clicky, add a step. I like that one. That's better. Excellent. Well, I think we've pretty much burned through our time. We started a little bit late today, but I think that's okay. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast, this has been a fun topic. I hope you enjoyed talking about or listening to things around Power Query. If you haven't spent some time, go check it out. There's actually some great learning at Microsoft. I don't know where the link is, but they have, there's always in the desktop, there's always a bunch of buttons to go get help in learning. Go check some of those out. There's some good learning on Microsoft.com that lets you find more things out about Power Query. Our only ask for those of you who listen is, if you enjoyed this, if you liked the conversation, thought it was engaging, please just go ahead and tell one other person about it. Share that, hey, this was a cool episode, or I found some value from this, and just let someone else know you enjoyed the podcast and share it with somebody else. If you're watching or listening, Tommy, where can you find it?
So if you're listening right now to the audio podcast, you can watch us live at 7:30 in the morning, Tuesdays and Thursdays on YouTube and LinkedIn. Just follow Power BI Tips on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you're watching live and you want to subscribe, go to Apple or Spotify, Explicit Measures Podcast. Make sure to leave a rating.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you on Thursday.